Welcome to Your Business is Not Your Boss. I'm Geoff Welch, and I help small business owners cancel the chaos and accomplish more with less effort. What is up? Welcome to episode 55 of Your Business is Not Your Boss. I am your host and small business coach, Geoff Welch, and today we are talking about the one thing you need to do to be able to grow, and the thing that may be actually getting in the way of your growth at the moment. Before we jump in, I do want to remind you of my mastermind called, easy for me to say, called Calm, Focused, and Effective, which is designed to help you cancel the chaos you experience as a small business owner so that you can multiply your results with less effort. We're going to help you set up your weeks with intentionality to really capture and understand how much time you have to work on your plans, the things that matter most to you, to operate like an owner so that you can make the greatest amount of progress possible with the least amount of effort. We're going to talk about delegation. We're going to get into all this stuff that is really going to help you level up your ability to be effective, level up your ability to let go of the frustration that you likely experience on a day-to-day basis. If you're like most small business owners, you're marinating in frustration, right? There's a lot of things to be frustrated about, but it does not have to be that way. Just go to jeffwelch.com/mastermind to literally start changing the game. Okay? So let's talk about the one thing that might be preventing you from growing as a professional, from growing in any aspect of your life. Really, this is aimed at small business owners and what you do on a day-to-day basis. But like any small business owner, I mean, your life is all tangled up in it. There are no hard edges for small business owners. So this really does apply broadly, not just to your professional life, but the one thing that absolutely is necessary, has to happen for you to grow, is for you to navigate and move through a phase of incompetence. And no one likes to hear this. This is very unpopular. No one likes the idea that the only path to growth is through incompetence. But there it is. I mean, you tell me anything that you have learned that you have not been able to do on day one and then figure it out how to do on day 493 that did not require you to become incompetent for a period of time. I defy you to find it, because what is happening when you are growing is you are challenging yourself with something you're uncomfortable with. You're challenging yourself with something you do not currently know how to do. And the process humans go through for growth like that is a period of incompetence. Now, for some people, and depending on the level of your, like how big the thing you're trying to accomplish, learn, grow is, that period of incompetence may be weeks or months or years. It could be really protracted. And for other things, it may be a matter of minutes. It may be a situation where if you spend 10 minutes working on this thing, you actually can master it pretty quickly. It's an awkward 10 minutes. It feels a little weird. I'll tell you a small example. When I ran Leadership Fairbanks, every year we would go serve at our food bank. We would spend the bulk of our day in their meeting room doing our sessions, and then the last quarter or third of the day we would spend preparing boxes filled with food for the food bank to distribute. And invariably, now the food bank in Fairbanks, I will tell you, so well organized. They are so good at bringing volunteers who don't know what they're doing in and turning them into experts in a matter of an hour. So we would go back there, and every year we would do this. So I would see this happen over and over again. But each class, each cohort was their own group of people, right? So they would come in and they would be given a set of instructions, which were very well laid out. And initially, everything's a little clumsy as they're trying to figure out what the best way to get this product in the box is and how it should be arranged and how they hand it off to the next person and what they need to have prepared behind them to move forward. And there's all of this this machination going on around the best sequence and how to do it. And after a few minutes, after a handful of boxes, let's say they were putting together, 200 to 300 boxes in a span of about 90 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes into that process, they've gotten pretty good at it. They're pretty smooth. There's a pretty small window of incompetence for a project like that. But let's say, you want to be a drummer. I've got my drum set behind me here in the studio. If you want to be a drummer, you're probably looking at different levels of ability, and you're going to be very incompetent at everything to begin with, and then you're going to learn some of the fundamentals, and you'll develop some competence around those, but you're not a fully competent drummer. There's much you still don't know. And so it is a constant state of learning, getting better, feeling, more fluid and comfortable, and then stretching yourself a little further into something that is awkward and weird, and I don't know how to count that, and I don't know how to make my limbs do those things. And then you get that a little better, and then you're constantly stretching yourself into a new arena of incompetence. Not total incompetence. It's not like you don't know how to do anything, but this new part of it is very clumsy. And, I think of video games. I think of all sorts of these different things where there is this sort of natural progression. I remember when I was a kid, video games came with a little booklet. Here are the buttons you mash. I haven't really played video games in a while, but my experience with them 5-10 years ago was that when you started playing the game, they effectively walked you through, in many of these games, they walked you through the skills you would need to be able to bring to bear in order to be successful in this game. And so there would be these, you would feel like you were playing the game, but really they were teaching you the mechanics of the game. They were teaching you how to do things so that when you entered in the main part of the game, you had moved through a little bit of incompetence. But that beginning part is difficult. I don't know how to control, as my wife would say, I don't know how to control my man. We played Call of Duty with some friends one time, and me and Nicole were on a team, and she is very terrible. I am terrible. She is very terrible. And at one point, she was just standing over by a wall with her gun firing in the air, just spinning around in a circle. And it just a treasured memory. So sometimes, for one person, incompetence may be a short period of time. For another person, it may be a long period of time. But we all have to move through that to get to the point where we are capable, whether that is speaking French, lifting weights, making it through the day without feeling overwhelmed. There is a thing we're doing today that we will have to do a different way tomorrow or in the future, and the path through that is incompetence. And your ability to embrace that, or inability to embrace that, is a fundamental pathway or indicator, of whether or not you're going to be able to grow. Now, let me tell you about a pattern that I see in the people that I often worked with. So this is anecdotal in terms of I am working on off of my experience, the people that I've seen, the people I interact with. This certainly is not inclusive of everyone everywhere, but I see a inverted bell curve. I call it the inverted bell curve of personal growth. So a bell curve on the left, it starts out at the bottom. As it nears the center, it's coming up into a tall hump, and then it comes down the other side and ends basically where it started, but on the right side of the graph. So you have something that looks like a bell. Now, an inverted one would be the opposite, where it starts off at the peak, dips down, and then comes back to the peak at the end. So here is my thesis based on my anecdotal evidence, my experience. When people start out in their career, they're getting after it, they're hungry. They are much more likely to recognize that they have a lot to learn. And so they are hungry to grow. They are hungry to learn. They have that beginner's mindset. They're willing to say, I don't mind everyone knowing that I have a lot to learn, because at this stage in my career, that should be expected. That's to be expected. and they are on offense. They are looking for opportunities to grow. So they are perhaps a little less self-conscious. They maybe don't feel like they have to prove as much to everyone around them, because it is not a negative for them to be seeking out information, to be seeking out opportunities to grow. They are much more likely to be open to the idea of incompetence, open to the idea of there being this window where they're going to have to learn some stuff and they're not going to be the domain expert. And then later, once they've developed some competence, once they feel like they've learned what they need to learn to be able to do the work at hand, the posture shifts to a more defensive posture, where now it is about maybe pushing off growth in favor of proving how smart they are, right? I'm in a phase of my career where I need everyone to know that I know what I'm doing, where it's important to me that everyone understands that I'm capable. And so in that situation, change and growth are kind of dangerous, because what they're going to force you to do is move through this level of incompetence. And you don't want to look incompetent anymore. You are an expert now, right? You are somebody who knows what they're doing, and asking for help, that's not what someone who knows what they're doing does. Well, you probably know what I think about that. And so it's a defensive phase, and appearing incompetent is dangerous, and change is the enemy of the known. And so that's the bottom of the bell curve, right? Where at the beginning they are growing a lot, they are open to growth, they're excited about growing, and in this middle section, that desire for growth, or even just whether it's desire or not, the growth that takes place really plummets. That it is more about maintenance, maintaining what they already have, as opposed to growing. And then what seems to happen as sometimes it's related to getting older. I know that as I've gotten older, when I was 19 or 20, I knew everything. My 17-year-old daughter, she knows everything. She knows it all. As I entered my 20s, as I got closer to my mid-20s, I realized how little I knew, and I know less every day since then. Every day since that point, I feel like I'm realizing how little I actually know. So sometimes it's age and that realization, but I think sometimes it is just wisdom and security, the knowledge that I no longer need to prove myself to anybody. I no longer need to impress them or them or them. I am comfortable with myself, and I am willing to trade and that feeling of incompetence for growth. What I want is I want more growth. I recognize there's never an end to what I can learn. There's never an end to, I can't get enough, right? I'm never going to limit out on growth. There will always be an opportunity to grow, to get better, to get smarter, to get faster, whatever it is. So at the end of a career, at the beginning, lots of growth, a strong offensive position. In the middle, much more defensive, much more focused on maintaining the status quo. And then later, this sense of like, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get where I want to go. And like, I call that maturity, right? I call that a phase where someone is matured to the point where they recognize that they get to choose what their limits are. And they also get to choose what their limits aren't, right? And they're not going to let the perceptions of other people influence their ability to grow and change and to be better. And so a question I have for you at this point is, where do you see yourself on that curve, right? Maybe not necessarily in your career. I've sort of mapped it out as being a, beginning, middle, and end kind of thing, but you can be anywhere on that curve at any time in your career. That sense of, I feel very hungry, that sense of, I feel like I need to defend my position, that sense of, I've transcended to some degree and I can just pursue the things that I'm interested in without, the fear that someone will say, wow, you're really clumsy at that. So where do you see yourself? And then where would you like to see yourself? I think the fantastic news is that this inverted bell curve of personal growth is not a law. It's just a trend, right? It's sort of plotting what you see and not necessarily what has to be. So again, you get to choose at any time to change your posture and to say, you know what, there's another way that I could approach my work, my growth, my development. And I'm going to make that choice now. So sometimes that's going to look like going back to school. Sometimes that's going to look like joining a mastermind. Sometimes it's going to look like reading a book. Sometimes it's going to look like reading a podcast or finding somebody on YouTube that knows just a little more than you do, that's a little further down the road. Sometimes it's going to look in like enrolling in an online course or engaging with a coach. There are lots of different ways for you to pursue that growth and to make that progress, but you aren't going to be able to do that until you get comfortable with the idea of a moment of incompetence. And that moment could be a day, could be a week, could be a month. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But once you get comfortable with the idea of the incompetence is a natural part of this, and the only way to grow is to move through it, and the advantage I have is if I'm willing to embrace the incompetence and someone else isn't, I win. Right? There's a situation where I can advance. I'm going to grow in a way that they won't because they are limited by not wanting to seem incompetent, not wanting to feel incompetent. So my opportunity for action here is to just identify an area in which you'd like to grow. That could be 1,000 different things. Maybe that is time management or delegation or employee management or, just expanding your knowledge of your industry or learning marketing tactics, or it doesn't matter. Just pick an arena and then spend 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking for is 5 minutes this week. Spend 5 minutes researching learning opportunities. What do you think would be the best way to learn this? What do you think would be the most effective or accessible for you way to learn this? None of this has to cost a lot of money. None of this has to necessarily cost, it doesn't have to be complex. It may take time in terms of it may take you a long time to master it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the kind of thing where you quit your job and you work on it for 6 months, right? You can be learning and growing in your spare time. You can be learning and growing maybe as part of running your small business. A lot of times as small business owners, we're going to incorporate this into what we're already doing, and it becomes a part of our day and our life. So the only prerequisite is to be humble, hungry, and fully willing to not be good at something for a minute. Probably not as long as you think. Now, again, I've said this on the drums. There are these moments when I come up against something that I don't know how to do, and it's frustrating. I do not like it. What I want to do is revert back to the thing I'm good at. And in fact, a great example in closing is the workouts my wife and I have been doing. We just concluded a 16-week program, and through that we would do 4 weeks of one set of workouts. 4 days a week, there would be 4 different, workout agendas that week. And we would do that for 4 weeks. And then the next 4 weeks, there would be 4 different agendas for a week. And we would do that for 4 weeks. And we've just got to the end of it. So we've gone back to the beginning to start over. And it is fascinating to look at what we were capable of on day one. And now coming back to day one again, how we've added weight, added reps, like all these different things that we can do with that same workout agenda, how we can do it differently than we could in the beginning, because at the start, we were very terrible. We were very out of shape, and we have gotten stronger, and we have gotten more capable as time has gone on. And so every time a 4-week unit would end and we would start a new series of, part of the program, it was annoying because we had to do different movements, and we had to, different numbers of reps or different weights. And it felt terrible that first week because it was new and it was a different sequence, and I wasn't graceful, and I didn't feel like I was able to do it as well as I had been when we were doing the other stuff that I'd worked on for 4 weeks. And yet week 2, week 3, week 4, it always got better. It always improved. And so the willingness to go through that point where you say, I'm going to try this thing on the drums. I'm going to work on it because I'm not good at it today, but that doesn't mean I can't become good at it. Or in these workouts, just because it feels awkward today doesn't mean it will always feel awkward. In fact, it will probably feel awkward for a lot less time than I think it will. I just have to get through this part where I'm creating some new grooves. Okay? I like that I just said creating new grooves, at least adjacent to a reference about the drums. That was unintentional, but I love that. So that's it from me. I hope you don't forget about this mastermind, calm, focused, and effective. If growth is on your mind, if you are interested in acting differently so that you can have different results, and for the case of this mastermind, those results would be feeling less stress. Those results would be being able to delegate more effectively. Those results would be literally multiplying your results with less inputs, with less effort on your part. And I would argue the goal should be, how can I do more with less effort? How can I change the amount of energy that I am expending as a small business owner while also creating more output? How would you like that? Like, that would be pretty great, right? So this is calm, focused, and effective, and you can learn more at jeffwelch.com/mastermind. I hope that you are focused on your growth. I hope that you are willing to feel a little awkward, to maybe look a little goofy for a minute, so that you can grow. There is so much potential that we limit because of our unwillingness to go through the icky parts. Okay? The good stuff is on the other side. And don't forget, your business is not your boss.